My boss sent me a message. It was just one line. Did we confirm the sign off? It was 8:12 in the morning and I was dropping my kid off at daycare and I froze because when you know the answer, you just hit reply. But I wasn't replying, I was searching. And by 10 a.m., I confirmed that it wasn't done. 12:55 p.m., we had to defer the entire project kickoff. And that's 3 months of work where I hit every single metric, and I had to tell my boss we couldn't go live because of one document I didn't follow up on. But that same week, my boss assigned me a brand new project. Now, I facilitate meetings with about 30 plus stakeholders for a living, and I almost choked. But the framework I use to deliver the bad news is called a detour, and it's got 3 moves, and it changed how my boss sees me today. So here's what most of us do when we realize that we messed up at work. We panic, we stall, and then we walk into that conversation with our bosses carrying nothing but bad news and a really long apology. Now, if that sounds like something like, oh, hey, yeah, there's been a bit of a situation and I just want to say I'm really sorry, like I should have caught this. Totally understand if you're frustrated. I've done this, right? I've been that person who walks in with nothing but I'm sorry's and I hope the conversation that might magically fix itself. But here's the thing, when you walk in with just an apology, you think you're taking accountability, you think you're showing that you care, but what you're actually doing is handing your boss a problem and asking them to solve it. Because here's what makes it worse. Research on uncertainty shows that the human brain handles definite bad news better than uncertain, maybe bad news. Psychologists call this the certainty effect. So when you soften it with there might be a delay or we're looking into it still, you're not really reducing their stress, folks, you're extending it. And then there's a trap that I fell on February 3rd. You see, when my boss messaged me that morning, my first instinct wasn't to tell her the truth. It was to check if I had something, like anything to cover my own ass with. I wasn't thinking about her, I was thinking about me. I was like, shit, did I really mess this up? And that's the real trap. You see, when we get caught off guard with bad news, our brain doesn't go into problem solving mode, folks. It goes into self-protection mode, like fight or flight. And you can bet your ass, I was looking for a way out, like, ugh. Now, self-protection mode sounds something like apologies, deflection, vagueness, but these are 3 things that destroy trust the fastest. So what do we do next? That's literally the question. My dad asked himself that same question when he immigrated to Canada in 1999 with the job that he was promised didn't exist anymore. But he didn't spiral. He didn't over apologize to the universe. He said, okay, I'm here now, so what? And he found work within weeks. And that has been the mindset of my guiding principle for a lot of things. And that's really how the detour came to be. You see, the detour is just a professional version of that question, so what? So when you're driving and the road ahead is closed, think of your GPS. It doesn't panic, apologize, or blame construction. It says recalculating, and it gives you a new route. So we're gonna talk about 3 moves. You name the roadblock, you show the map, and you offer a new path forward. Now, let me show you exactly what each of those sounds like using the conversation I had with my boss that same day. Move number 1, name the roadblock. This is the part that most of us choke because naming the roadblock means saying the hard thing out loud. There's no burying of it, no softening, no corporate fog. Here's exactly what I said to my boss on February 3rd. The checklist was assigned to Bob to complete. Here's the conversation I had with him. It was last followed up on November 26th. That's it. 2 sentences, no apology tour, no I'm so sorry, I should have caught this. There was no spinning it. It was just, here's what didn't get done, here's who's on it, and here's the last time it was touched. Now, why does that work? Because when you name the roadblock with specifics, you're giving them certainty, and even bad certainty is better to process and easier to process than fog. Neuroscientist Matthew Lieberman found that simply labeling a negative experience by putting a clear word to it reduces the brain's threat response by 40%. So when you say the checklist wasn't done, last touch point was November 26th, you're not informing your boss, you're actually calming their nervous system, giving their brain something concrete to process rather than some fog to fight through. Now notice what I didn't do. I didn't say, well, there might be a slight issue with the compliance piece, or I didn't say, you know, we're still figuring things out. I named it. Date, person, status, boom. Now let me be real with you. This is where it gets hard. Every instinct in your body is going to tell you to soften this, to add a potentially, or we're exploring options, because your brain is convinced that if you say it clearly, the reaction is going to be way worse. And I know that because I was typing my own response that morning and I kept rewriting it. Like, you could probably see the little dots on Teams saying like, oh, Shahmeran's typing something. It's going to be juicy. I kept trying to find a way to make it sound less bad. But here's what I had to remind myself, that if I leave my boss guessing and I haven't delivered the news, I just transferred my anxiety to her. And there's a second thing that goes against every instinct. I included the date, November 26th. Now that date does not make me look good, folks. It proves that there was a 2-month gap where nobody followed up including me. But here's why you include it. Because the specifics are what build trust. When you say the last touch point was November 26th, your boss hears, okay, this person has done their homework, they know exactly where the gap is, they're not winging it. Vagueness says, I'm hiding something. Specifics say, I'm on top of this, even when it's bad news. And that is the move. Name the roadblock, be specific, even when the specifics make you uncomfortable. Move number 2, show them the map. Once you've named the roadblock, give them the context, not excuses, context. Now, there's a difference between the two. You see, an excuse sounds like, I was supposed to do it, it's not really my fault. Context sounds like the checklist was assigned in November, Bob had competing priorities, I didn't build in a follow-up checkpoint. That's the gap. You're not throwing Bob under the bus, and you're not falling on your sword either. You're showing your boss the landscape so she can understand what we're working with. But here's what separates the good from the great on this move. You see, I didn't just show the map of what went wrong. I showed the map of what it is going forward and how I'm going to fix it. I told my boss for next time, I'm going to manage this through status reports. And if something's not moving, I'll use that as a talking point to get my stakeholder attention and keep it on track. Now that one line changed the entire tone of the conversation because now she's not hearing someone who dropped the ball, she's hearing someone who already knows how to make sure it doesn't happen again. And then you pivot to move number 3. All right, move number 3, offer the detour. Now this is what separates a difficult conversation from a relationship ending one. We don't hate bad news. We hate bad news with no path forward. When I told my boss we couldn't go live, I didn't stop there. I said, you know, I've talked to Bob. He needs about 4 weeks before he has availability. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a first pass at the checklist myself. I've got a technical background and I've done these before. So I'll get it to a place where Bob doesn't have to start from a blank slate. He'll pick it up, take it the rest of the way. Now, I didn't ask my boss what to do. I told her what I was already doing, and that's the detour. And that's the new route. And maybe it's not the original timeline, but it is movement. It is forward. And research from Harvard's program on negotiation even backs this up. You know, bad news delivered with options is significantly better than bad news delivered alone. People don't need perfect outcomes. They do need to know that there's a path forward. And the detour isn't about making your boss feel better. It's about showing them that, hey, we can still get there, just not the way we originally planned for. So that's a detour. 3 moves, name the roadblock, show the map, and offer the detour. Now, quick question for folks. Which of these would be the hardest for you to do under pressure? Drop it in the comments below. I'd love to see what other people also struggle with. Now, here's the part that nobody talks about though. You know, knowing these 3 moves and actually using them when your stomach is in knots are 2 different things. And here's the gap between knowing and doing. You see, you can memorize these 3 moves, name the roadblock, show the map, offer the detour, and still freeze in that moment. Because in that moment, your amygdala isn't thinking about frameworks, it's thinking about survival. It takes about 0.4 seconds for your prefrontal cortex to override this fear response. Now, that doesn't sound like much, but when you're staring at a message from your boss at 8:12 in the morning, no caffeine, and you're at a daycare, your 4-year-old's trying to figure out which shoes she should put on, that 0.4 seconds feels like an eternity. So, what do you do next? Well, here's the move that stops us from using the detour. You see, we wait until we're in the conversation to figure out what we're gonna say. That's like waiting to go on stage to learn your lines, and it's not gonna work. So, on February 3rd, when I had about 2 hours after I came home, between finding out if the checklist was done and having to tell my boss we can't go live, I had to figure something out. Now, I could have spent that 2 hours spiraling, like, you know, rewriting the same message 15 times, asking GPT to read it, make it look more concrete, start looking for jobs on LinkedIn, I don't know. But instead, I spent those 2 hours building the detour. I called Bob, I asked him his availability, and I mapped out what we could do and where I could possibly help. And then I wrote down my roadblock statement, literally word for word on a piece of paper, so it's not in my head. It's on a piece of paper. Then I typed it up and then I put it on a sticky note right beside my webcam. So when I had to tell my boss the issue, I wasn't gonna choke because I've already done the hard thing first, which is writing it the first time. Saying it the second time around, it becomes repetition. Now, the anxiety doesn't disappear, folks, but it doesn't hijack you either. Think of it this way. In terms of stress, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to your basic level of training. So here's your preparation checklist for any difficult conversation. Step 1, write your roadblock statement. What's the 1 or 2 sentences that name the truth? Be very specific with the dates and the names and the status. Then step number 2, prepare your map. What does the context look like? Can you explain it without blame? And what's the fix going forward? 2 birds with 1 stone. And then step 3, have your detour ready. What's the alternative? You know, don't wait for your boss to ask, so what now? Have the answer ready before they ask the question. And this is the line that changed the entire energy of the conversation for me. I said, I'll take the first pass myself. Bob doesn't have to start from a blank state. And that line does 2 things. It shows ownership. It shows I'm not waiting for someone to fix this. And it shows initiative, that I've already started doing the work. before this conversation happened. And when my boss heard that, conversation shifted. She wasn't hearing someone who dropped the ball. She heard that someone already picked it up and running with it. And that's the power of Detour, folks. You're not just surviving the conversation, you're proving that you are the kind of person who can be trusted with the next one. So let's bring it home, folks. The Detour, 3 moves. Move number 1, name the roadblock. Say the hard thing clearly. Dates, names, stuff, no fluff. All right. Move number 2, show them the map. Give them the context, no excuses. Show them that you already figured out and how to prevent it for next time, and then offer the detour with a plan. Don't wait for them to ask the question, what's next? Have that answer ready. And really comes back to the, so what do we do next question. Remember February 3rd? And if you don't, I definitely still do. The project was deferred by lunchtime, but that same week, my boss assigned me a brand new project. Similar scope, different technology, more responsibility, not less. And she told me something that I haven't forgotten. She said, coming to your manager with a problem, that's what an individual contributor does. But coming with the problem, solution, and the recommendation, that's what leaders do. The detour didn't just save the conversation. If anything, it changed the way how my boss sees me. Now, I'm not saying I've got this figured out perfectly, folks. Detour does give you something to hold on to when your brain wants to panic. Now, here's the thing. We've covered a lot in the series so far, from stopping people from talking over you to interrupting someone without being rude, getting quiet people to share their ideas and then responding when the idea misses the point, redirecting people when someone tries to hijack your meeting, and recovering when your brain freezes mid-sentence. Now you know how to tell your boss bad news without losing their trust, especially when you're the one that messed up. Now, these aren't random tips, folks. They're frameworks, tools you can use each time you walk into a conversation, a meeting, or a moment that really matters. And if this series has helped you, I'd love to hear from you. Drop something in the comment and share it with someone who might need it. And if you haven't watched the rest of the videos, start wherever feels right. Each one of these videos stands on their own. Thanks so much for being here, and I'm going to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.